Hey, Stephen Yonti here in a private physical therapy clinic because I got encephalitis back in September and haven't been able to do new videos for the Junkyard Crawl. But in the meantime, we figure something's better than nothing. And a lot of people don't realize that we've got something like 330 videos in the channel playlist for the Stephen Yonti YouTube channel. So if you're having withdrawal from no new videos, you can actually check out some of the classics that you might not have seen before. And in the meantime, before we get rolling with this, we're going to run a bunch of heavy-duty truck videos in a string of maybe 10 of them. So every day you'll get a good fix of Mack trucks, Diamond T's, Rios, Peterbilts. Well, no Peterbilts, actually. Those are a little too big for the junkyard. But basically Ford and GMC, even Toro Flow V6 diesels. Crazy stuff. So we're going to run those things in the next several days. So please stay tuned to the Steve Mag's YouTube channel. By all means, give us a thumbs up. And quickly, I want to thank Rick DeBrule and Tyler Hoover for keeping the channel alive in December and January and really stepping up. So thanks, guys. Well, roll the tape. Hey, Stephen Yonti here doing the Junkyard Crawl with help from my friends at High Octane Classics in Auburn, Mass. Thanks, guys. And, you know, we often think of big, heavy trucks and their engines, you know, big diesels, big V8s. Well, who would put a V6 in a heavy-duty truck? Well, GMC would. In fact, GMC had heavy-duty V6s of 305, 351, 401, and even 478 cubic inch displacements. That's a big V6. There was even a twin 6 with 702 cubic inches. So let's look and see which one is under the hood of this 1967 GMC EM5700 truck. Okay, there it is. This is probably the 351 or maybe the 305, but the thing about these V6s is they're on a narrow 60-degree angle, and that makes them more compact. And if you're looking for the spark plugs in a normal location down here by the manifold, you might be surprised to see that they're not there. In fact, GMC put them here in the valley to get them away from the heat of the exhaust manifold, because trucks like this with a full load, these manifolds can glow red, and that's normal. But if the spark plug wires are within, a foot of that glowing red manifold, they tend to get crispy, bake, and fail. So again, these are very interesting engines, massive, huge cast iron structure. So this is a V6 that has nothing to do with the 1980s and fuel economy. These engines came along in 1960, in fact, and were used into the early 70s. And again, GMC only. Chevy trucks never use these things. But something kind of cool on this family of GMC truck is how the hood has a butterfly effect. You can open it from either side versus an alligator type hood with the front, and the whole front hinges down for full access. The front fenders swivel out, so you can really get at that engine when it's time to service it. Now this, of course, as all trucks did at this time, has front drum brakes, stamped steel wheels, no 5-lug or 8-lug heavy duty stuff. This is a 5-ton truck, not a really heavy 8 or 10 truck or 10-ton truck. But like all Chevy trucks and GMC trucks, there's a thing inside called the SPID, or the Service Parts Identification Decal. Let's go inside and see what we can learn. And before we dig into the SPID, we'll notice how this cab is similar to a cab on a Chevy pickup truck. Dimensionally, the doors are pretty close too, but the floor is very different. We can see that it's flat. There's no transmission tunnel because, again, this cab sits up much higher than it would on a pickup truck frame where it would have to clear the transmission. This does have a 5-speed manual transmission. The shifter has low, second, third, fourth, fifth, and reverse. So low is way over here, and then second, third, fourth, fifth. And again, you'd probably, I don't think you'd have to double clutch, not sure. Again, this is a synchronized manual transmission. But here is the SPID inside the glove compartment. There we go. And here it is, Service Parts Identification Decal SPID. Anyway, we start here. Model, it's an EM5700, wheelbase, 191, that's a long one. Has the BUD 6-stud front wheels, the FO55 front axle, the new Process 5-speed transmission, auxiliary springs in the back, air cleaner, heavy duty, 5 identification lamps up on the roof, right-hand door lock, believe it or not, extra money for a door lock on the passenger side, 5,500-pound front springs, 2-quart oil filter, oil bath air cleaner, 13-inch clutch, parking lamps, extended front bumper, X63. We'll get to that in a second. That's weird. X63, extended front bumper. That's strange. Make note. Engine, 305 V6. And again, the rear axle, by the way, 617 ratio. But again, with those tall tires, it names it down. Heater, vacuum reserve tank for the power brakes, spare wheel carrier, WC, I'm not sure, mirrors, cab handles to get in and out a little bit easier, 21,000 pound rear springs, which is what, 6 tons, right? 7 tons? Anyway, governor for the engine so it doesn't rev too high, 12-volt battery, of course, rear direct signals, and 5-inch by 15 rear brakes. That is a big brake drum. But back to that X63 extended front bumper. Let's take a peek at that. Climb down, and here's those cab handles. Optional, but so handy, literally. You can just sort of swing on down. Okay. Now the thing is, on the front of this, the bumper is a standard bumper. But if we look here on this GMC dealer brochure, we'll see that the bumper sits pretty much flat with the nose of the truck right there. And on the back, we see it again. The bumper is flush. Well, with X63, we'll see there's about 3 inches of space between the bumper and the front. And what that's usually for is so that vertical struts can be installed, which then would take an overhead rack for hauling pipe, for maybe an industrial pipe company or something like that. So X63 extended front bumper and the frame rails, again, this would be flush against the nose of the truck. But the beauty of this semi-cab forward design, and again, if you'll notice, the hood on this is kind of stubby compared to like certain other GMC trucks, is that these give you a 92-inch back of cab to front bumper distance. Of course, with that extra 3 inches, it's more like 95 inches. But again, on this family of GMC trucks and Chevrolet trucks, the semi-cab forward, it was all about that 92-inch bumper to back of cab distance, which made maneuverability in cities and tight quarters a lot easier than with the full-length nose type cab. Now, this is a long wheelbase. We saw that like 190-something inches. Extra long frame, 3-piece drive shaft. Again, a single tube running from that 5-speed transmission to the rear axle would be one long wobbling thing at speed. So we have the first drive shaft coming to this support bearing here, which is isolated in rubber with a roller bearing. Second drive shaft here, going to yet another support bearing, and then from there to that rear axle with those super stiff gears. And again, these tires are ultra tall. They've got to be almost 3 feet tall, something like that. So these will tame that crazy rear axle ratio. So this thing actually goes down the road probably at something like 1900 RPM, you know, cruising and hauling that load. And again, that extended front bumper, this probably had a flatbed, which would then haul pipes, would be stacked high and sometimes maybe even over the roof of the cab. And to support that load over the cab, you'd have those vertical struts from the bumper on up. That's most likely why the bumper on this thing was extended that 3 inches with that X63 RPO code. So it just goes to show that V6s aren't just for Chevy Citations and lame Mustangs and little tiny Camaros. They were actually built in huge size for GMC trucks like this one here. Now, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Maggs YouTube channel, and we'll be back tomorrow with more Junkyard Crawl.